So I watched a recent interview with Usyk, and beneath the humour were several revealing ideas. He explained why surrendering the belts did not weaken his status, questioned the financial burden of sanctioning fees, dismissed the robbery debate, and left the door open to Dana White. He also confirmed that his last dance means exactly one fight, but the most interesting layer was psychological: faith, underdog mentality, legacy, and control. Usyk is no longer chasing titles. He is choosing the final chapter, the opponent, and the terms. So let's unpack 8 important statements. So I watched an interesting interview on Usyk, and there are 8 ideas I want to discuss. So the first idea is that Usyk reframed vacating 4 belts not as a retreat, but as a power move. So the vacation was a power move. According to him, he's still champion. And if you look at the public, or the boxing purists, or the casual boxing fan, he is still seen as the champion. However, objectively, if you look at the commissions, he is not the champion. But we know that over the years, Usyk has been dominant. The wins over Anthony Joshua, the wins over Tyson Fury, and the wins over Daniel Dubois have been extremely significant. And he's shown an elite level, or he's shown he is the most elite fighter of this generation. And then the second idea is that he quietly confirmed that the sanctioning fees, which I believe were 3%, they were bleeding him. So here's an interesting point. The economics were part of the problem. So the reduction was part of the issue. Perhaps the sanctioning bodies may need to review this. Maybe they need to either reduce the sanctioning fees or negotiate the fees, or maybe implement the fees in the appropriate context. If champions reject, especially champions that have massive branding like Usyk, if they reject the fees, this could jeopardize the normal structure of boxing. And the normal structure of boxing is that, the world champion institutions. But here's a question. Are the fees unreasonable? Are they unreasonable? 3% doesn't seem unreasonable, but if you have 4 belts, all with 3% fees, then 3% turns into 12%, and 12% of large sums of money is extremely significant. So who is right in this situation? And like I said, does it need to be readjusted? Does it need to be negotiated? Because this could potentially change the way boxing operates. And the third idea is the robbed narrative against Rico. And Usyk refuses to bite. He states he's not a referee, he's an athlete, and that the situation is food for journalists. Now, I think it's important to recognize a few things here. Rico put up a great performance. He had a great team. He utilized his feints really well. He had world-class experience in the kickboxing context, which transferred well to the boxing context. And the variables of having no previous footage, it really worked in his favor. Rico put up a great performance. Usyk didn't have a great performance. But it's important not to minimize the nature of Rico's performance. And maybe Usyk was robbed of a decisive victory, considering that everyone thinks that the stoppage was premature. There were some interesting elements around that stoppage. Rico was given a long time to recover after the count, but then the fight was stopped when the bell rang. It's important to remember, though, that the referee may not have heard that bell when he made that call. And it's always easy to have hindsight bias. The referee is making the decision in the moment, or we can make a decision based on the information and after the fact, and that's always easier. And then the fourth idea is the Zuffa Dana White door, which is open. And Usyk states that maybe Dana and His Excellency can make me an offer. And this is a door, and that door may open, but not all doors have good rooms. The important bit here, and obviously I'm being figurative there, is to understand, is the Zuffa boxing platform, is that the right platform for Usyk's farewell? Because at this point in Usyk's career, it may not just be about the money, it's about the terms and the power, but he has the credibility and the branding to have a tremendous amount of leverage. And if Usyk collaborates with Zuffa, then both parties will be benefiting. Zuffa would love to collaborate because then that gives them further, it hires the credentials, it gives them additional legitimacy. So it's something that they would want to do, and that of course would come with a price. To me, the Rico fight was a fight of tremendous risk, and I don't know why Usyk took that risk. Rico had everything to gain, nothing to lose. Usyk had not much to gain and everything to lose. So I'm assuming that his next move will be a better move. Now, the next idea is the last dance. Again, this could be linked to Zuffa, assuming that he signs with Zuffa. But the last dance, that one final fight, who will it be against? There's talks of Deontay Wilder. I'm not sure how far we are with those talks, but I think a lot of people within the boxing community and with casual fans are not necessarily happy with that particular opponent. I think it's important to remember that if Deontay Wilder was the opponent, then he would bring an element of risk because of his great power that he possesses. Whether he's able to deliver that power to the target, well, that's another story. And this leads us to idea 6, the whole concept of the Wilder and the US Stadium as the stage, and now its legacy over belts. But does beating Wilder enhance Usyk's legacy? To me, from my perspective, even though Wilder is a former champion and he's a champion with virality, he's seen as past his best. Usyk is supposed to beat Wilder. So if Usyk fights Wilder, Wilder is the one that has everything to gain and not much to lose. So it puts him again in a compromising position, not as much as a compromising position as the Rico fight, because Deontay Wilder is still a former champion, but it's still a compromising position. And the power makes it more risky than you might think. And then the 7th idea is the Rocky Marciano parallel. Rocky Marciano was undefeated when he walked away from boxing. It's important to realize that Rocky Marciano is an underrated legend, in my opinion. He had the Suzy Q, which was the right hand, and his training, and when I say him, I mean Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano his training was innovative and brutal. He was known for these extraordinarily big weighted punch bags. I don't think anyone at the time had punch bags that were as big as Rocky Marciano, and he used this to improve his endurance and his punching stamina. Usyk's training is also innovative and brutal. He uses cognitive training drills to improve his adaptability and ring IQ. So it's interesting that they're both very different boxers. Rocky Marciano was seen as a fighter, but Usyk was seen as a boxer. But their training methods were equally innovative, but for different reasons. In the same breath, Usyk also states that he's the underdog, even though he's the undefeated fighter. And this, to me, reveals the Usyk psychology. He comes into the ring as the underdog so that he brings the best version of himself. And then the 8th and final point, or idea, is that Usyk runs a spiritual operating system, which consists of prayer, cleaning the soul, and the body is seen as a car for the soul, which leads to some interesting questions. Does Usyk's spirituality improve his boxing? Does prayer help for preparation and tough times in fights? So only does it help with getting through the training sessions, it helps him get through the big fights when things get tough. Usyk is very open about his faith, and the car for the soul is simply figurative language for it being absolutely essential. To me, this is another Usyk-Evander comparison, because they both use faith as a tool of enlightenment in the boxing ring. And it's important to remember that a big part of boxing is psychology. So perhaps Usyk has mastered part of the boxing psychology, partly through his spiritual practices. Think of this. Usyk's interview revealed a champion redefining what power means. The belts, the fees, and opponents now matter less than freedom, faith, and legacy. Whether his final fight comes against Wilder or another challenger, Usyk appears determined to leave boxing on his own terms, which is still respected publicly as the division's true king. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community, and that means I'm interested in your thoughts, I'm interested in your perspectives, and I'm interested in your observations. Now if you want to support the channel, press like, hype, and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content like this, then simply click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated.